As you're working on your parenting skills, you can use this method to get your child to listen and behave. I've got Vicki here to help me out to share with you some strategies. Now, we first need to understand some things about how children operate, a little bit about child psychology and communication. Then we'll get really practical about some tips that you can apply immediately. I'd say the most important starting place is to get your child's attention. You're going to notice that children are highly distractible. Have you noticed this? Anything can pull their attention away from the thing you want them to attend to. So as we start this interaction, we want to get on our child's level. If you have a small child, crouch down, get down lower so that you're down on their level. If you're way up here and they're way down here, then they're going to blow you off anyway, and you become part of the background noise. Get on their level, get between them and whatever else it is that's competing for their attention, so that you know that they're locked in on you, because that's really important as we get to our next step.
Now that you have your child's attention, you want to be really clear about the instruction you're giving them or the limits that you're setting.
And I think that needs to happen in a way that is very compatible with the child's age, stage of development.
Right. You know, we want to get at the level they are. And so you're going to want to use words that they already know. You're going to want to use the kind of language that is going to reach them. So I know that, I've never been a big fan of talking down to kids, a lot of little baby talk. You do want to at least use the speech that they're really going to understand if you want them to truly understand that. So tailor your speech and the words you use, your vocabulary, the way you deliver it to their age appropriateness.
Once you've clearly given the instruction in language that they understand, it's time for the consequence. Follow through consistently with appropriate consequences. Now, when I say appropriate, I mean appropriate for their age, but also appropriate for whatever it is that you're working on with them. One of the more common forms of consequence is timeout. For timeout to work, remember who we're dealing with here. Children are highly distractible. Children want attention. So timeout to be effective needs to be isolated. And I've seen this mistake a lot of times with parents who put their child in timeout, but that timeout is out where they can observe everything that's going on in the house, or they can still see the television screen or whatever. We want it to be isolated because that's how it works the best. As you implement the timeout, as you're putting your child in timeout, you're going to be a robot. Okay, we're removing all of the emotion from the discipline. We want to redirect the emotion back into the relationship. That's where we'll focus our emotional energy. But the discipline is all business. So you turn into a robot. You grab your child by the hand and march them into the timeout area. Now they're going to be protesting. Okay, yeah, because that used to work. But you're going to be robotic and simply march them in there in a very business-like way. Provide the isolation for the timeout. So we're removing two things here. We're removing extra stimuli that might get their attention or distract them. And we're removing the emotion from implementing that consequence. If it's not timeout, then you're probably removing some kind of a privilege or access to something that they really want to keep access to. Any of those consequences need to have those same components. So it needs to be as immediate as possible, very businesslike, robotic, if you want to think about it that way. We're taking the emotion out of the discipline. This is one of the real keys to disciplining children, because what it does is it shows that there's a detachment from the outcome for the parent. And if the parent is detached from the outcome, the child now is in a position where they really need to think about how important this consequence is to them. It's really powerful to do that. One more thought about those consequences. No unauthorized escape. Your kids are spending all of their time trying to figure out how to get what they want. You've got other things on your mind. So if you implement a consequence and you go off to do your thing, they're still thinking about, how do I get out of this? You don't want to have any unauthorized escape from the consequence. It has to be able to follow through for them in order for it to be effective. Probably one of the most important parts of this whole process is to stay calm.
Wow. It can be a tough one, but your child probably is not going to stay calm. So you need to make sure you are calm.
And that is to be expected. Mm-hmm. Because the protesting or the turbulence that you're experiencing has always worked in the past for the child to avoid listening and behaving. And so as we change things up, there will be some resistance, especially as you're implementing consequences. So remain calm, keep breathing, okay? You've got this, and be in charge of the situation. Somebody's got to be the parent. We would much rather it be you. As you stay in control of your own emotions, a really neat thing happens psychologically. Can you feel the shift that's going to happen? It shifts the burden of thinking back to the child.
Yeah, as long as you're upset, then they know that they've got you and you've got to figure it out. So if you can stay calm, they realize that what they're doing isn't working and they're going to have to start thinking about what to do to change it.
Whoever's the most upset is the one who has to do most of the thinking. If you are just losing your cool as a parent, then you're the one who has to do the thinking. I remember back when we were doing a little podcast on parenting, and we had Jim Fay as a guest on our show. He's one of the authors of Parenting with Love and Logic, and just a brilliant man who's shared so much light and knowledge with the world. And I remember he said, he called it brain drain.
Okay.
It's a game. So if you think of this as a game that you're playing with your kids, the game is to get the other person to do all the thinking. And the clue to this is emotional regulation.
Yeah.
Whoever's in control of their emotions has just shifted the burden over to the other person to do all of the thinking. Kids are pretty good at this game, so watch out.
They learn it quickly.
Yeah. Now we get to use this whole experience as a learning opportunity. And this is really important because you get to repeat this every day, or we can take home the lessons now so that we don't have to continue doing all of this in the future. What we're doing is training and educating our kids to respond differently than they have in the past. So to use this as a learning opportunity, there's two things that I want you to do. First of all, take an opportunity right now after the consequence has been appropriately administered and you're tracking your own emotions, everything else we've talked about in this episode, and take an opportunity now to debrief with your child. Not while they're upset, because when they're upset, they're not processing anything. They're still trying to do the fight or the flight response. So after they've calmed down, after the fact, at an appropriate time, you approach them and you debrief with them. You process this. This also has to be according to their age and development. So whatever they're capable of processing with you, get down on their level again and talk to them about what happened. You might also ask, so, sweetie, what did you learn from this? That's a great question that helps to draw out what they're learning from their experience. And then the other thing that I want you to do, find an opportunity in the next few days to give them another shot at this. Now, a lot of times that will come up naturally because we're dealing with patterns and habits of behavior that will come up naturally. When it comes up again, we're going to have an opportunity to solidify the learning from this time around. So process with your child. Watch for that next opportunity. Remember to stay calm yourself, because that gives you the power to help influence your children in more powerful ways. There's some good challenges to parenting.
Yeah, there sure are.
Yeah, but you don't have to do it alone.
No.
We've got your back here. There are so many resources that we have pulled together, including the Parenting Power Up, where we've gone through a lot of practical ways to power up your parenting. It's all found at Live on Purpose Central, So here's the website, go.liveonpurposecentral.com. Come see us over there, and we will support you in your positive parenting.
I could be color